Hello and welcome back to Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. Hey guys, today I have a really fun guest. We're talking about how to simplify your life and find greater happiness. My guest is Steph from Steph Travels and Steph in Clover. She's well known on TikTok as part of the nomad community. I started following her and began to realize that she was embodying one of my favorite spiritualists, Henry David Thoreau, who died in 1862. So he never did see the end of slavery, but he was an abolitionist. He is the author of Civil Disobedience, which says that it is our responsibility when we live in a democracy to question the actions of the government at all times. Something that's gotten a little bit lost, but he was an absolutely brilliant person. He did die at a relatively young age at 44. He was from a family that had some consumption in it. He was from Concord, Massachusetts. Consumption is tuberculosis. None of his siblings had children, and neither did he. But at one point in his life, he had attended Harvard. At one point in his life, he moved to Walden Pond, and he wrote Walden, which was essentially his spiritual journey through naturalistic practices that connected him to his essentially essence, his authentic being, his spiritual self. And it did involve making his life as simple as possible. So what does this have to do with my guest today? My guest today undertook that, never having even heard of Henry David Thoreau. When I commented on one of her TikToks, hey, you're embodying the modern day Walden, she replied that she had to look it up, but that it made some sense to her. So we're going to go over to Steph now. Hi, Steph. How are you today?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for being willing to do this because it had to be a little bit mystifying. What does a tarot reader with a podcast want to talk to me about? I want to talk to you about what led to your decision because a nomad, by the way, there's a difference between being unhoused and being a nomad. Quite frequently, nomads have chosen the path. The unhoused are frequently the victims of a very tight housing market where they can no longer afford housing. So I want to make that very slight distinction. And Steph, back to you. What caused you to choose the path of the nomad?
Yeah. So I've been traveling in my Jeep as a nomad for about a year, since June of 2022. So about a year and 2 months or so. And I decided to quit my job. So I had worked my job. It was a corporate job for about 16 years. And, I just had a pretty normal life. I, was working from home. I had started that job when I was 20 years old, worked my way through multiple roles. I started out at the front desk and went into a supervisor position, operations, district manager position, worked my way all through these different roles and found myself in a very high stress corporate role at the end. And I just kind of had a had a bit of a breakdown, I had a bit of a psychological breakdown, and I just stressed. I was so stressed that I needed to do something else. I decided I didn't want that life anymore. I didn't like my apartment. I didn't like the things that were in my apartment. I didn't like the people that I was around. I just couldn't de-stress. It just wasn't the life for me anymore. So when I decided I didn't want to do that anymore, I didn't have anything to fill it up with. I didn't know what I wanted. So I decided to just go ahead and take a trip and sell my things. And I figured it would come to me at that point, at some point during the trip or whatever. So I decided to take the seats out of my Jeep and just go on a trip to Colorado and clear my head. And pretty much immediately when that came to my mind, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I didn't know what this nomadic lifestyle was. I hadn't really stumbled across that yet. I just knew that I wanted to go travel. And to make extra income, I was door dashing. So I took out my 401k. I quit my job. I took out my 401k and I lived off of that for a little while. And I started door dashing and was able to just basically, as I lowered my bills, I found that I didn't need to make as much as I used to in my corporate role. So, I just kind of stumbled across this and built it as I went. And yeah, I just sold all my stuff and took a trip and haven't stopped tripping. Haven't stopped going.
And it's, it is funny the way the universe works because to this day, I do not know. There's something called a For You page. I love TikTok. Anybody who knows me knows I love TikTok because the very best of us is present on TikTok as well. Can the worst be? Of course. But, your experience is what you make of it. And your FYP, which is your For You page, is curated for what interests you. And I had liked, I think, a travel video that you had put up. And I kept getting your videos and I followed you and I was just fascinated by your journey. And what you are describing is called a spiritual enlightenment when basically nothing works in your life any longer. And what you did is what so many of us have done is you tried to do the things we are told will yield happiness, will yield a feeling of having a rewarding life, of being a productive person, of having a purpose and knowing why you're here, having a point to your life. And what you also underwent is what so many people of us have been finding is that we have created a world in which our stuff owns us, not the other way around. We work and we work and we work trying to maintain the stuff around us. And I live in an incredibly affluent area of the world. I don't live in an affluent place, but I'm very adjacent to it. And so I read for people all the time who have tremendous amount. They have so much privilege and they can be very, very good people. So please don't think I'm slamming on people with more, but they don't have as much happiness as we have been told having all that stuff will yield. In fact, they're quite confused by why they're unhappy because by the standards of what this world has told us is important, they have gained everything. And when I keep going back to Thoreau, who is a fascinating human being to me, and I've revered him since I was 16 years old, because the other part of me is that I'm very attached to trees, and so is he. So he seemed like a very kindred spirit to me. And he's a beautiful and excellent writer. Check him out. Civil disobedience is one of the things that would help us in this world. If we're trying to make this world a better place, go to him again, because he knew what he was talking about is the timeless work, Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. But what you are doing is the personal level, because if we want the world to change, we have to start first by changing ourselves and how we interact with the world around us. And you did everything you were told and found that you were eroded by essentially the machine that you had been asked to be a cog in. So now, I'm going to ask you some practical questions because part of the reason I wanted to have you on is, girl, you give the best life advice I have ever seen. Nobody explained general delivery to me until you did. I had no idea how DoorDash worked until you were doing ride-alongs and you break it down and you show people how you shop and it's like you're the best billboard ever for, hey, if you feel stuck in this rut, if you're looking for a way out, here's a path, here's a path. And you show these things. So will you talk to me a little bit about the practicalities of living in your Jeep? I'm going to ask the one up top everybody's going to care about. Girl, where'd you go to the bathroom?
Yeah. So, well, the bathroom thing, I just go like everybody else. I mean, I
Went
kind of
on a road
consider
trip.
myself, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go
So the bathroom thing, I'm assuming, is you simply, like when we're on a road trip, we stop at Burger King, we go to rest stops, it's just you find a bathroom. You can't be ruled by your bladder, So I'm assuming that's part of it. But where do you shower?
Yeah. So, okay. So, I'm a hybrid. The way I put it is sometimes I'll be out in nature, sometimes I'll be in the city. So, you know, a lot of the time I'm in the city trying to make a little bit of money. I don't have a lot of needs with that. So I am able to go out into nature. And when I'm out in nature, I just will squat somewhere. I'll just kind of do the baby wipe thing. My latest trick is just a little bit of water and a baby wipe and maybe a little bit of soap, some salt. Salt is amazing for helping with preventing bacteria from growing on you. So a little salt in the armpit, under the boobs, and you're good to go. And when I'm in the city, I'll go to Planet Fitness. You can have a gym membership there. It's like I think I pay $27 a month, and I can just go shower anywhere. I can work out. I don't take advantage of the working out as much as I should. You can tan, you can do the massage chairs. Planet Fitness is great for that. So I'll go shower at Planet Fitness. When I'm door dashing, I'll just go to the bathroom at a gas station or some type of restaurant that I'm door dashing at. So it's pretty simple. I do have a Shiwi. If you've ever heard of one of those before, it's kind of like a little funnel where you can funnel it. You can funnel your
Oh,
urine out. somewhere. I've only used it once though. So I've had it over a year now, and I've only ever used it one time when I didn't feel safe to leave the Jeep. So like for example, when I was in Wyoming, I was out. When you're out in the forest like that, and there's bears, and you can hear the coyotes. There might be wolves. There might be anything outside at night. So it is nice to have something like a shiwi, or just some kind of container to go in if you need to. But again, I've only ever done that once, so
Is it
really,
she,
it
we?
doesn't come up.
Because
Yeah,
many years ago, I was in a car accident and I ended up in a wheelchair for 4 months as opposite side bones were healing and but it also meant that I had to use a female urinal, which is a
yeah,
she. And it's not that bad, guys. It's just frequently, it's not that bad. Not that I do it
yeah.
to this day or anything, but in a matter of necessity, hey, again, it is about freeing yourself from the stress, the toxic environment, and the weird power games within corporate America. So we've covered the basics of what everybody cares about the most when they're like, but how could you? You go, how, where do you go to the bathroom? How do you shower? She figures it out, guys. She's a very inventive person.
Yeah. It doesn't come up as much as you think, really. I mean, it's you can find a spot, and like I said, when you're out in nature, you can just go behind a bush or something. It's not that big of a deal. But
And
if you need to, yeah.
the other thing I saw you do, which was amazing, was use a dog poop bag as a sink.
Yeah.
Which I was like, that is ingenious. So you really do, you figure it off.
Yeah, I always keep like these little rolls of doggy bags, and you would be surprised what you can use these as a sink. You can use them as little trash bags. Um, I use these as a sink like almost every day. I know it's not the most I don't know, eco-friendly solution, but one thing about DoorDashing that has kind of opened up my eyes about us in the environment is we feel such a responsibility to not use any extra plastic, to to be really mindful of those types of things. But I see so much waste out there, and being on the road, I kind of feel like I'm one of the least wasteful people I know. I mean, I don't use energy. I use like maybe a bottle or two of water a day. I don't use very much compared to like a normal household.
Mhm.
So using like a little doggy bag as a sink now and then is, it was something I had to get over in the beginning because I felt so wasteful using these little bags, but really they're so handy. And I've even used these to give myself a foot bath, which is so silly. But you can literally just put a little bit of water and Epsom salt and put your foot in it, and you give yourself like a little Epsom salt soak if you need to. And I'm a Pisces, and so I really have to be around water. And like baths are one of the things I gave up to go onto the road, just being able to soak. And so to be able to soak my feet in a way that is like kind of streamlined is important to me. So I've done this a few times where I'll just stick my foot in one with some salt.
You brought up something I kind of want to shine a little flashlight on for a moment, which is that when, some counts, some reduction counts. If you still have to contribute to waste, it's partially because the modern world has made it a necessity. And, they do make, biodegradable poop bags. I buy them all the time. And so there's that option as well. But they're not recyclable. They'll just break down over the course of like 50 years. So it's a slightly better solution, but it's not the best solution. Having said that, the amount that you contribute to the environment or your carbon footprint has been reduced by such a huge percentage that you are still contributing some. Some always counts when it about reduction. You've reduced by at least 80%. If you still have a 20% adding to the waste thing, look at the 80%. Everybody has to contribute to something in order to maintain their lives in this difficult and challenging reality. I know so many vegans, and I'm no longer a vegan, by the way. I'm a vegetarian. We're like a dying breed, but I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat cheese, but I eat eggs sometimes, guys. So I'm busted on that. I was having so many issues with making sure I had enough food to eat that I was like, I have to break down and start eating more. Also, rigidity is not a good solution either. If you're trying to get away from the conformist structures of the society that is making people sicker and unhappier, maybe don't build a new prison out of spirituality. So that's a little bit touching on what you're saying, is that cut yourself a break. doing the best you can is the best that you can do. And in your situation, that is the best that you can do, and still maintain your physical body in a way that feels good, in a way that helps you be connected to your earthly self, because we're meant to be. Now, Henry David Thoreau was a transcendentalist, which whenever I hear about people trying to transcend this experience, please remember we have all of eternity to not be connected to our physical bodies. While we're here, stay as here as you can be while doing the least harm that you can and doing the most good that you can do. And for you, you're healing your spirit and your soul, and you're reaching out to so many people. And I remember seeing you post a text that you got from a former coworker who was headed into a meeting and acknowledging that you're probably in the mountains sitting by a lake right now. And in fact, you were showing a video of you walking around by a lake with the text there. How has your life improved?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I think the biggest gift that I've given myself is time. A lot of us feel like time is money. And the biggest question I get asked is around like my income and if like the time I'm spending DoorDash, like how much do you make per hour and, squeeze every minute out of everything, make sure you're getting paid as much as possible for everything, monetize your hobbies, all of this stuff. And I'm just like, wow, I have such a different mindset than most of the people around me. I really have kind of given up a lot of that materialism and that need to squeeze everything out of every moment. I have a lot of time now. I can go and take as many breaks as I want. I can change my mind about anything at any time. So like what you were talking about with the rigidity, being rigid and, putting structure for yourself that's it's not needed in my world anymore. The biggest thing I worry about is the weather, making sure that my dog Clover is comfortable, and being able to kind of turn on a dime and pivot and do something different if what we're doing isn't working out. If I change my mind tomorrow on anything, then I don't have to feel bad for that. I don't owe anybody structure. We have some structure, but it's so fluid these days. That's the biggest gift I've given myself, is the ability to be flexible, and just be out here and be out here for the experience of it. I'm not worried about trying to make a profit on anything. I haven't made any money on YouTube or TikTok or any of that stuff. Everything I do is just for the experience of sharing the adventure, and maybe somebody can benefit from what I'm experiencing, but it's just for the love of the road and the love of travel. And so that's the biggest gift that I've gotten doing this.
And that's absolutely pretty much the definition of being in flow, is you have allowed your path to change as the energy around you changes, as your emotions change, as the things are, you are living a life that is far more likely to yield all forms of health. Because when we make our whole lives about meeting obligations that are not necessarily serving us, but again, serving our stuff. And hey, by the way, like if anybody takes bets on how long it's going to take me to say the word codependency, bingo, you just got it. We have created codependency, by the way, is when our relationship to self is largely dependent on an exterior source. It is not just a romantic concept. It is not just a familial concept. Codependency means that your health, well-being, and spiritual connection is dependent on an exterior source rather than your interior world. And we have created a world in which we are all encouraged to have a codependent relationship with stuff, with what other people think of what we have acquired, of what other people think of what we are doing. And instead, Steph has gone towards a life where she has prioritized what she thinks about her life, what she feels about her life, what moment, because we only get moment to moment. Remember, when we talk about the past only being memory, I correct that always saying the past contains the key to healing the wounds that have held you back. So search it for the ways in which you have gotten in your own way. Somebody said the other day, you don't have a type, you have a pattern. And I thought that was utterly brilliant. And your patterns are contained in the past when you look back at yourself without judgment. But the present is all we truly have to interact with. And the future is essentially what we are imagining it will be, what we're striving towards, the picture that we're trying to create. And instead of trying to create a picture that will serve the needs of a society that, demonstrably does not care about its citizens on an individual basis. I mean, that's like irrefutable, folks. Like we're pretty much we're told it's management out there and dog eat dog and you better hustle, hustle, hustle. And you divorced yourself from hustle culture. And how is your emotional world different now than it was when you did absolutely everything you were told to do that would yield a successful life? And in fact, by the standards of society, you were succeeding, but by your internal and emotional world, you were essentially dying. So how has it made things different for how you view yourself, your world, and your place in it? Big
Yeah, yeah.
question.
Well, you said a lot. You covered a lot, and one of the things that stuck out to me was patterns. And I actually talk with my sister a lot about this, and how we seek patterns. And being out here on the road, I see that more than I ever realized it was there. I mean, we're always looking for patterns around us, and whether we consciously realize it or not, we're looking for, even when you're having a conversation with somebody, you're looking for a pattern in the way that they're speaking or behaving. And if something deviates from the pattern, you pay attention to that, and so you're doing that in all things in your life. And I think coming out here, I've become more tuned into that. And I've learned very quickly that you need to look for the patterns. If something is off with the pattern, even a little bit, move along. And I won't, if something shifts in the town I'm in, or if something shifts in the environment that I'm in, or if somebody is around me or my dog or my vehicle, I will, and there's a weirdness to their pattern of behavior, I will just leave that parking lot, leave that town, leave that forest, whatever.
And you have that free.
Now, like, as yeah, and I have that freedom. I don't owe that town or that place anything. I can just go to the next I can go to the next forest. Usually there's like 3 or 4 forests right next to each other. I can just go somewhere else. It's not that big of a deal. You have to like listen to yourself, but there's a certain peacefulness that I think that you can get. Now, in the beginning, it wasn't necessarily like that, because in the beginning I didn't really know what I was doing. So the peacefulness has just kind of settled in once you've kind of cast all of that old stuff away and the stigma of it.
Mhm.
Because like in the beginning, it was almost like I was in the closet about what I was doing, because I didn't, I never, I didn't come across this idea and say, okay, this is what I'm going to be. It developed. And so I had to kind of like get over a few things in the beginning, like, for example, not having a living room, not having a couch, not having, a refrigerator or a microwave, all these things you feel like you're supposed to have that, but then I didn't want any of it anymore. And everything in my Jeep currently is by design. I mean, I like the minimalist, roughing it type of lifestyle, but that's not for everybody. And you can't just expect everybody around you to understand it or to want that for themselves. And the great thing about TikTok, the great thing about all of this has been coming across all of the different people who are doing this, their own version of this. I've talked to people who live in RVs, buses, vans, cars. There are people out there that live off of the back of motorcycles. There's a guy out there that's lived on his motorcycle since the 1990s, and he is as happy as can be. And so it's insane to see all of the different ways that people live, and they've migrated to that naturally by casting away these expectations that you're talking about that society has for us. I'm taught I'm supposed to want the house and the picket fence, and luckily I discovered pretty early on that I don't really want those things, and I don't have to have those things, if I don't want them. So what that does to you emotionally and spiritually, it just kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's aligned me better to my true path, and I'm not a slave to owning things like a washing machine or I don't know, whatever appliances. I don't even have a computer anymore. I gave my laptop to my mom when I went on the road because I didn't want it to get stolen. And frankly, there just wasn't a place for it. I had it in the back of my seat for like 3 or 4 months. And finally I shipped it to her because I just didn't have a need for it anymore.
what
So,
you're talking about has its roots all the way back in the actual Buddha. And when I talk about Thoreau, who I like mention a lot, but he inspired people like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. He actually was like an amazing person for his time period, but he was also drawing on the teachings that he may or may not have been exposed to of things like the idea that since Buddhism holds that all of our suffering, that suffering is inevitable in this physical life, which unfortunately is a little bit true, but that all suffering comes from attachment. Now, I don't really genuinely believe that at the level that Buddhists do, because I do believe we are meant to be in this experience and living a purposeful life and making the difference that we can. But sometimes, since everyone walks a different path, sometimes your purpose will be to connect yourself with your true and authentic self. And in Buddhism, there is the idea of renouncing physical goods in order to connect yourself spiritually to your divine self and to achieve what is called nirvana. And so, what you are talking about has its principles in a theory that has been around for so long and has been yielding happiness in the people who are able to embrace it. It is a difficult task to do so in a world that is absolutely obsessed with stuff. What kind of car do you drive? Where do you live? How are you dressed? What kind of jewelry are you wearing? We assess people's worth and place in this society by assessing their possessions and how they present themselves with their materialism. And it is not working for people. Now, you don't have to take it to the extreme where you renounce all physical goods and you're living in a Jeep, which is making you very happy. But there is absolutely something in your life that you can release and unburden yourself of an attachment that is actually holding you to a societal ideal that does not serve your spiritual self, your emotional self, your personal happiness, your ability to connect, and your ability to love. Now, we haven't talked a lot about your, captain, your little co-captain, Clover, who is your Boston Terrier. I believe she's 6 years old. She's delightful. Like she's a little presence on TikTok. I look forward to the Clover tax every single time you're cooking, which you cook in your mini rice cooker. She demonstrates how she makes meals with a Jackery, which is a power source that I looked into it. It goes from like 300 to like 3,000. People who live off grid use them as well. Is a chargeable power station. So she's not out there in the woods with like a flint and a stick trying to spark some fire. She's out there plugging something into her Jackery in order to cook. And you shop regularly and you're excellent about showing what everything costs, which is one of the ways that I really think that you're divesting yourself of the expectations of others. And guys, that genuinely, please listen to me, that is the path to happiness. If you start living for yourself and not in a narcissistic way, but in a, what do I need to do to nourish my spirit and my soul so I can feel better than this? And if what you're doing is not working for you, please remember that what I was saying earlier, some counts. If you don't want to take it to the extent where you're living in your Jeep, figure out what you can let go of to make yourself happier. Because after a divorce, what I did was I moved into a much more modest place, which I didn't have a lot of choice in that. I have 2 dogs. This was one of the places that would take my giant dog, Oscar, who was declared an emotional support animal as one of my ways of making sure I could retain him after I became a renter again. But I moved in and there was a gas hookup for the dryer and I had an electric dryer and I hadn't checked beforehand. I was like, okay, I'll order some clotheslines and see how I feel about hanging up my clothes to dry. It is 2 years later. I'm still doing that. I don't have a dishwasher. I thought, well, I'll do my dishes for a while and I'll see how I feel about it. And I can get a rollaway dishwasher or a portable dishwasher if I really dislike it. And I'm still doing it. Simplifying some of the things in my life and connecting myself into the routines of my life got me in touch with who I really am. And that's really what I'm perceiving in what you're saying as well, Steph, is that you have found a connection to what will make you happiest in the moment, and that you can go with that because you have freed yourself from the ties that bind us to our stuff. So one of the things that I'd really like to ask you is what ways in which your emotional health has benefited from this?
well, my emotional health has benefited from no longer worrying about dishes very much. I, um, I did. What it's so funny, hearing you talk about the dishwasher because, okay, so one of the things like when I first came out here, a big objection that I had in my mind was how much I hated dishes and how was I going to figure out how to do dishes out here. I'd never been without a dishwasher. But like even when I lived in my apartment, I would have sorry, we have Clover
We
wanting
have
to
a
calm
guest
down.
star. This is
Um,
the lunch buddy who
her bed her bed
Clover.
is over here and she was trying to figure out how to jump over this power cord.
So rather than let her leap, you're like, let's facilitate this.
Yeah, this is my travel buddy, Clover. Yeah, so I wasn't sure how I was gonna do all this with that. And like I think in the beginning, when I first started out, a lot of my energy was focused on things like figuring out how to survive, figuring out how to cook and do dishes and stuff. And then I discovered I just don't even like doing dishes at all. So I have like one fork, one spoon, one bowl, well, I have like a bigger bowl and I have a smaller bowl. And like I just clean those right immediately, put them away. It takes a second. And like when you simplify your life and make it smaller like that, I have such a small world in a way because I don't have to worry about the logistics of very many things anymore. Like for example, I don't have a yard, I don't have plants. Maybe I'll have like a couple of potted plants in here, like some herbs and stuff. I'll keep like some rosemary or parsley or whatever. But like I'm not like emotionally invested in those things like we're taught to be. Like we take so much pride in our grass in our yards and like our things that we have, and I don't have to worry about the logistics of all of that. In fact, my rosemary plant, I have this like running joke with myself. Her name is Eartha, like Eartha Kitt. I don't know if you know
I know
who
who
Eartha
it
Kitt.
is.
Yeah,
She's the
so
original
Eartha,
Batwoman, among other
my
things.
yes, so my rosemary plant, she's not with me right now, but I'll get to that in a second. But she has like this like cheetah print bandana I like to put her in, and she just has this Eartha Kitt vibe. And what will happen is she'll just grow too big for my Jeep over time, and she's just got a big head, and she's just got all of this life and vivaciousness, and then all of a sudden like she'll just like die in my Jeep. She'll wither away because she needs to be out there in the world. So I'll leave her at like a gas station for somebody else to pick her up. And then I'll pick her up again like in the next state. So I have this like running joke where I'll go and I'll buy like this little baby rosemary plant over and over and over again. I pretend it's like the same Eartha Kitt that she's just getting around the country. And like I hope people will
Reincarnated
rescue her.
Eartha.
Yeah.
The
Because they
original
always do.
Eartha.
Yeah,
Awesome.
the parsley, the cilantro, they always just grow so big. So I'll just like leave them somewhere for somebody to pick up, hopefully. And like, I think the last one, I might have left her at like a laundromat or something, and hopefully she'll have joy for the next person, and I'll just pick up a baby version later on. So I really don't, I'm not emotionally invested in those things like I used to be. And for like your spiritual, emotional, like how you benefit, I just have like a calmer way of being. I don't stress out too much about very many things. Like I said, I'm worried about the weather. I'm worried about where I'm going to go sleep. Those types of things. Like, am I going to go out to the forest? Am I going to be in this town? How long am I going to be in this town for? It's really none of it's a very big deal. I just kind of go wherever the wind is taking me with that type of stuff, and it gives me a lot of time to reflect, to I don't know, just have that centered calmness. I never had that before. I was always very tightly wound. I have a Virgo moon, and so I really love to live in spreadsheets. I'm very analytical with a lot of things. I'm a little hard on myself, and so coming out here, it's kind of allowed me to, with the whole TikTok stuff, I can do the whole Virgo moon thing. I can create videos, and I've got the Pisces sun, so I can kind of express myself and do all of that through the videos, but also like I can just kind of like recharge. Everything's on my terms. It's a very beautiful thing. So I don't know if that answers what it's done for me emotionally, but
It absolutely does. It absolutely
I
does.
just have a freeness. Yeah, it's a freeness that you just never, I just am worried about my Jeep, I'm worried about my dog, and very little else.
And Clover has a fantastic life. She's always with her person. I do like I watch like I'm not this is a parasocial relationship, folks. We've never spoken before today, but like I watch absolutely everything that you put out, and I'm always impressed by how well cared for Clover is, how happy she is, how many wonderful experiences she's having with you, and that you are also having. And what you referred to earlier is something I'm going to circle back a little bit. You're not worried about your grass. You're not worried about this. You're not worried. And it's all about maintaining the image that we project to the world, is what you're talking about. Is when you turn your energy not from maintaining the image that you are projecting out and what other people think of you, and instead turned into the internal view of what do you think of you? What do you think of your life? What do you think of your experience? And that is the literal only way to achieve a ego death, but also a spiritual connection and a path to true spiritual freedom. Because when we are very invested in what others think of us and how others are judging us, we forget that everything is within our hands and that we simply have to choose to free ourselves from the expectations of a society that is not invested in your spiritual, your emotional, or your personal happiness, but rather in what you can do for it. And I'm a big, like I have jury duty coming up again soon. I'm a big proponent of participating in your society because we all need one another, but it should never be at the sacrifice of all things about your individual soul and your individual spirit and your individual experience. If the life you are living is not serving your inner peace, question the life that you are living and why you're living it. Are you living it because it's truly right for you, or are you living it because you've been told that's what's right for you? And what Steph is talking about is that when she embraced a life that was about what she wished to do with her time, with her spirit, with her energy, she was freed from so many of the burdens that society says you must carry these on your shoulders in order to be a productive member of society. And I'm here to tell you that people who are at peace are much better members of society than people who are fighting tooth and nail every day to protect their beloved stuff. And I'm a Taurus, man. I like my stuff. I like a comfortable bed. But there are ways to simplify your life and to divest yourself of the responsibilities and the burdens that we have been told we must carry. And when we do that, we start questioning everything and the validity of the messages that we are told. And I'm not talking about like, oh, you mean we should kill it? We should run around taking whatever we want. It's not that. Being destructive is never something that would serve you. But being kind and compassionate to self teaches you how to be kind and compassionate to others. And I like your lives too. Guys, please check her out on TikTok. It's Steph and Clover, and she absolutely delves deeply into what this type of life looks like for people who are living in schoolies, which are converted school buses or RVs or cars, or the guy you referred to who's reenacting Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which is a very famous novel about a man who freed himself by driving across the country on his motorcycle trying to find his spiritual connection. So what you're doing is an age-old thing, but you're finding your own individual experience. And that is what is about being in spiritual alignment. So can I ask you, where do you find places to sleep? How do you do that? And so that's the TikTok I haven't seen stuff. How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, it's something that you develop, so it's really a lot of personal preference. You want to think that it's always beaches and forests, and you're out in these beautiful locations, and sometimes that's how it is, and you plan for that. Like I've stayed in a lot of different like canyons and in the mountains and stuff on over by rivers, but sometimes you're also staying at rest areas. Sometimes you're staying in parking lots. I've stayed at plenty of Planet Fitness parking lots, a couple of Walmart parking lots. More and more when you go to those places, some of them will allow overnight parking and some of them won't. So that's why I really like being in the Jeep too, instead of one of those bigger rigs, is I can kind of go anywhere and fit in anywhere. And if I really need to, I can just kind of even park on a side of a street, and nobody really knows what I'm up to or anything. I can just go take a nap and be on my way again if I need to. So, it really just kind of depends. I guess my favorite places to stay would be probably like the desert. That's one of my favorites. I like being out there with the cactuses and the stars. The desert would be number one. Number two would be the forest and mountains. And then, maybe rest areas would be like a third choice because you have easy access to a bathroom and a pet area and, water and stuff if you need it. Lots of people around. But yeah, I'm very fluid, I guess would be the best answer to where I sleep. And I just sleep right here in my Jeep and I can be anywhere. And so there's no pressure. If I don't like where I am, if I wake up in the middle of the night and there's people around or something, I could just drive away to another spot.
And again, you're talking about an existence in which you have so much power over your experience. And it's okay if you don't believe in magic and things. I absolutely do, and I'm a practitioner. But what Steph is talking about is one of the ways that people claim their personal power by beginning to take command of where their life goes and when it goes and if it needs to rest and to pause and to refresh and to recharge is all about being in basically flow with your energy that creates absolutely everything that you could ever want. But what you do find, what I've found, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I do watch you on TikTok, and you have a sense of community, which I genuinely enjoy, where you talk to other travelers, you talk to other nomads, and they help other people understand the quality of their life and the validity of their choice. And what I've really been impressed by is that unlike the suburban world, unlike the world in which we are always like trying to protect our stuff, the people on the road quite frequently have a sense of community and a willingness to share their experience and an openness to experience as well. And one of the things that I think is so valuable about what you're doing is that you are demystifying and debunking the idea that you can no longer achieve happiness if you renounce what this world has been telling you you must do in order to find peace and happiness. What I keep finding is that people are increasingly toxified because we want to detox. People have become completely immersed in a toxic culture that robs us of our ability to find joy in life. And we're all looking for a joyful experience. And if there's even one party that slams into the wall of like, I could not be happy without my flat screen, listen, it doesn't have to go as far as giving up your flat screen. What you can do is do this gradually as well, but don't be too surprised as you do, you realize I'm less and less and less attached to the stuff around me. I got really lucky when I was 12, I was in a house fire. And so I've never actually been lucky. I'm fine. But what I learned about material goods is that don't love them. They cannot love you back. And they're incredibly fragile in a way that we don't understand. The poor people of Maui have had so much of everything that they valued in life utterly destroyed. And people need to understand that part. I'm not doing this to be like, hey, be scared for your stuff. Rather, understand stuff is stuff and you are you. And sometimes you utilize your stuff, but it does not define you. And it does not actually give you happiness. Sometimes it can give you comfort. And comfort is far more, it's better to pursue the idea of spiritual, emotional, and physical comfort than the idea of grandeur, which is what so many people are caught in, where they want designer this, designer that, the best car with the biggest price tag, and that will make them happy. No, it genuinely won't. It will just give them more and more burdens that they are carrying and trying to maintain. So Steph, what's your day looking like after we finish talking? Because you were very kind to talk to me at a time when you might otherwise be out door dashing. And by the way, she breaks down DoorDash in a way that demystified it entirely for me. And one of the reasons I'm really urging people to follow you is that you have a gift for taking something, and it might be because you had to deal with everything when you went out there at first, with making sure that people understand all the stuff that you're scared of. How would I, here's how you, here's how you do it. You are very good about illustrating how you cook, what you do to sleep, what you do to make money. And do you stick to the Pacific Northwest in California, or do you go to other parts of the country?
Yeah. So, okay. So the biggest thing about what you've talked about is accessibility and how accessible everything is. And that's a big mission of mine, is the transparency, the accessibility of it all. Um, my day today is really going to be very simple. I'm at the lake today, and it's one of our favorite lakes. So right now I'm kind of hanging out in 100-mile or so radius in Washington. I'm up by Vancouver, so it's very cool. I think right now it was like 60 degrees. It's going to be 70 something degrees today. It's perfect, beautiful weather. So I just haven't wanted to leave. I've been here now for this area. I've been here for like a month, almost 2 months, I think. And so there are in the area that I'm in, there's 7 lakes, and so I get to kind of hop around between all the different lakes. There's Mount Baker, not very far from here. There's some fires over there right now that are pretty intense, like 5,000 acre fires. So I'm avoiding the Mount Baker area right now just because of all the smoke and stuff. But I still have all these lakes. The air quality here is amazing today, so I taking advantage of that. I'm going to go out to the lake with Clover, let her swim a little bit. A friend of mine got me this like shower hose thing that I've been having on my wish list forever. And basically, like it's USB charged, and you just put the base of it into a bucket, and then it works just like a shower. And so I'm really excited. Clover needs a bath, and so I'm going to try and give her a bath today. So that will be fun. But really simple stuff, it's more about just enjoying it. I'll figure out maybe something to cook and put out a cooking video or something. But like all of the stuff that I do, if I find an opportunity to share it with people, I want to, just so that they can realize how simple it is to go out. If you had a desire to live this lifestyle, you could just go out and figure it out on your way. It's really not as big of a deal as you can make it out to be. If you want to, you can do it very, very simple, pick up a couple of things and just go. So yeah, accessibility and simplicity is the theme, I guess, right now. And so just enjoy the lake, and I might go DoorDash for the dinner, DoorDash hour, work a few hours, make a little bit of money to be able to pay bills. I don't have to make very much. I've got all of my bills down. So right now I paid off my Jeep earlier this year. So really I just have car insurance, my phone bill, food, Clover's food, and so really it's just very simple living. So I don't have time constraints on that type of stuff. I can go with whatever direction the day is taking me.
And
And
presumably,
oh,
go ahead.
oh, sorry, and I didn't answer. So this is my first time in the Pacific Northwest. So when I started out, I took a trip to, I did like Colorado. I started out in the Texas area, so I left my apartment in Texas, went up to Colorado. I spent the winter in the Arizona area, again, about a 200-mile radius from Phoenix or so. And then I've gone all over, but this is my first time in the Pacific Northwest. So I've been spending the summertime here because of the weather. Originally, I was going to go to Maine and New York, but something told me to come this way instead. And so I did a quarter flip, and I let the quarter decide if I was going to go east or west. And it told me to come here. So I followed that. And I'm really glad I did, because of all the smoke and fires right when I was leaving in like May and June, they had all that smoke up there. And from what I understand, everything is just so much more easier and accessible up here, and it's beautiful. And so this was exactly where I was supposed to go. From here, I'm going to go down through Oregon, California, and then I'll go down to Arizona again for the winter, and I'll go visit my mom in Texas, and then I'll go up and visit my sister in Kansas. So
Yeah,
just
I
kind of
think you have home bases where, like, it's not like you're like you have family and you can go and stay with them as
I can
well.
go and stay with them, but once you're out on the road like this is my home. So it's very weird to stay in a house. I stayed with my sister for, I think, from March until right when was it? May, right at May. And so I stayed with her for a couple of months, and it kind of made me stir crazy. So I like the idea of being able to go visit them for a little bit and move on, but I don't like have a room or keep things there or anything like that. So I wouldn't call them a home base, but definitely like they're anchor points throughout the country. I have a couple of friends and family where I can go anchor myself there if there's like an emergency or a need, or just wanting to visit for like the holidays or whatever, birthday or something, special events, things like that. for
And
sure.
then vet care is presumably done through things like Banfield, which is attached to PetSmart, or do you just find a local vet whenever Clover needs one?
Um, well, so there haven't really been a lot of instances. Like she keeps up on her vaccines and stuff, but she's very healthy. So I haven't had any emergencies or anything. Now, I am very aware when I go places where the vets are. I do pay attention to that. I pay attention if there's like a 24-hour, vet just in case. She has allergies, but we manage those really well. She actually has grass allergies, so I have to wipe her down with a wet wash rag after she goes through like tall grass and stuff. But that's it. She's very healthy. So we have our vet back in Texas, and she got her vaccines, all done there. She's going to be due, I think, in October for her rabies, I think, or something like that. So I'll get that taken care of when I go visit my mom down in Texas. But if I needed to, yeah, I could go to like a Banfield or something, but I really don't. She doesn't she doesn't need much more than an annual visit. So I can just
A
time all of
great
that.
life. Your dog lives
Yeah,
an
it's not,
absolutely great life
it's,
where she has
yeah,
more dog adventures than like most dogs do. She's not sitting at home waiting for you to get home from work. She's with you.
yeah,
It's just a beautiful life.
yeah, yeah. So I've had her since she was 8 weeks old, and, we keep up with everything. And, she's a Cancer. So she's a true Cancer. She's very intuitive, and she travels really, really well. She loves the water, snacks, naps. I mean, she just is very easy on the road. And so we have a good flow. She likes our hikes and, the lake and stuff. I have to be very mindful that she needs her hikes. And, that's actually something I need to. And I've learned that like she's the star of everything. So everything I do kind of centers around her. If she's not comfortable, I'm probably not comfortable either. If it's too hot for her, it's actually probably too hot for me. If she's bored, I'm probably bored too. So we have kind of like developed, I don't know if you call it like a psychic link or whatever, but we have this connection where we can just read each other so well. And I think a lot of that just comes from all the situations that we've been in over the years. I mean, she's used to all of these different types of scenarios anyways. And so when we were on the road, it's just very easy to read each other. And if she's frustrated with something, I stop and I listen to what's going on, and we figure out how to make it work for her. The door dashing was a bit of a challenge in the beginning because we had never door dashed together before. And so she has her bed, she has her crate right here, all of her toys, her bed is in here. This is her like safe place. So I do keep her in the crate. We'll go do a delivery or two. We'll stop. We'll go for a walk somewhere nice, like we'll find a park or something, and then we'll go do a delivery or two. She'll come out. We'll go for a walk, and so that was like how we trained up to be able to do this. Now she just doesn't even care. She's like, okay. She just goes into her bed, and half the time, like whenever I'm doing something, I'll just look over and she's in her bed anyways. I mean, that's kind of how it was in the apartment. She would just kind of be on the couch anyways. So it's kind of like her version, I guess, of sitting at home on the couch. She'll just go kind of like hang out, and, she'll let me know when it's time for a break, and we'll go find a lake or something to go cool off in. And it's just very, very chill. So it's easier now than it was those first couple of months.
When you are truly connected to your interior world, you do actually intuitively connect to those that you are closest to, including your animals, which are often it's the way that the universe helps bring you a part of yourself that you need to heal. So, like my dog Oscar, who's on the floor, you can't see him right now, but he's the one who, when he stands up and moves around in the background, I hate my poor clients are like, it's like it's okay, it's just a dog, because he's a little intimidating looking, but he's a great big cuddle bunny. But he has PTSD because he was found abandoned on a highway, and apparently people shot at him or something, which he no longer manifests at all. But like I have PTSD, and so this dog helped me confront how to take care of an absolutely like almost childlike being while he was triggered. And now he's to the point where it's the 4th of July and he doesn't care because we have our little routines that we go through. And there is also a spiritual concept that your pets are actually your spirit guides in a incarnate form. meaning that they are brought to you to help connect you to the parts of yourselves that is your highest self. Because ideally, when you are connected to an animal, you learn your relationship to power. When you have all the power over something, you learn who you truly are. It really does help you access your true character. And so we reach for our highest selves when it comes to our animals, ideally. And that's what you're talking about with the psychic bond that you have, where you can intuitively understand her needs, and then you see to them as a good guardian would. And so it also connects you to self-care, in that taking care of her is taking care of you. So, everybody, this has been what it is like to simplify your life and finding happiness through greater simplicity. And it's an age-old spiritual concept. And I really thank Steph so much for coming here and talking to us about it, because until you speak to somebody who's actually undertaken a path, you don't know what it looks like. And this is something that, like, I haven't said to you yet, but I'm about to say it on the recording. So won't that be fun for you? Not all spiritual leaders understand that they are spiritual leaders. And in your own way, you are a spiritual leader, because you are connecting people to an authentic way of living, which always yields a better form of life, a better way of living, a better understanding of self, which leads to a better understanding of others. Steph, do you have any closing thoughts before we close out here?
No, just thank you so much for a really great talk and experience. And, I'm glad to have gotten to know you a little bit better too, through the conversation that we just had. And, to anybody out there who is interested in, simplifying things, sure, go follow me. I've got a YouTube I haven't really done much with, and then I've got my TikTok. So, really happy for just the opportunity to share a little bit today. And just thank you so much. And it was fun to have the conversation.
And I will link Steph's TikTok account and her YouTube channel. I don't have your YouTube channel link, so I'm going to have to ask you to send it to me. But if you send it to me, I will link it. There will be a video version on my YouTube channel, and then the audio version is available on Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. Everybody, please remember that you can start things by degrees, and take this lesson and carry it forward. Your path to happiness does not lie in adding in more. Quite frequently, it is determining what you need to release so that you can have fewer burdens, so you can stand up taller, you can feel lighter, and you can be happier as you go forward in this world. I'm Elaine. You can find me at therisingmoon.com to book me for a tarot card reading, a spiritual guidance session, a life coaching session, what have you. And you can also find me at Cronecast at The Rising Moon. That is my YouTube channel, not Cronecast with an M, but Cronecast, like I am the mother maiden crone, third stage of a magical life. And I am also always here on Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. Thank you so much for joining me. For somebody who does not understand, perhaps, that she is very connected to the resting spirit of Henry David Thoreau, who had more answers for us than we sometimes believe. Live well and live magically.